Hi everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the channel, and I am here for a discography rank video for you guys. Now for this ranking, we'll be ranking the Death discography. Now, Death is a band that I've been into for quite a few years now, I believe since late 2017, and the album that got me into them was Human. I know that was my first album from them, and of course, rest in peace to Chuck and with his contribution to the band. And Death is probably the heaviest band that I listen to. Either this band or Meshuggah is the heaviest band that I listen to. Although I really don't listen to Meshuggah that often, so there's that. But Death has never released a bad album. I think all 7 of them are great, so I really don't think there's any wrong answers when it comes to a Death ranking, I guess. But keep in mind, this is just my opinion, and as a matter of fact, I know that there's going to be some people that disagree with some placements of my ranking, especially with what I have at the bottom. So with that being said, we're going to go from worst to best. Let's go ahead and begin, and we're going to begin with their latest album, The Sound of Perseverance. I know some people would have this album closer to the top, but for me, I wouldn't do that. Still a solid album though, still a very good album. I mean, there's definitely a lot of great stuff on here. Some of my favorites would have to be Spirit Crusher, Story to Tell, and Flesh and the Power It Holds. I mean, these are great songs, and yeah. One of their more proggy albums, which I do like, because I do like progressive metal, for those who don't know. But yeah, definitely a great album. I don't think it's one of their best, though. Again, even though it's at the bottom, I still think it's a very good album, for sure. So next up is actually the only Death album I don't have in my collection yet, which is Scream Bloody Gore, which is their debut album. Definitely a very good album. The reason why it's closer to the bottom is mainly because I feel like it's their most forgettable album. Even though I think it's a great album, I just think it falls into that forgettable category. I just honestly don't remember much from this album. Now, I do think it is a great album, don't get me wrong, and I would like to get it someday for my personal collection, but yeah, I had to put it closer to the bottom, but it's still a very good album. But next up, we got Leprosy. Now, there was a point where I had this album closer to the top, but it's kind of grown off of me a little bit. Still a great album, though. Some of my favorites would be the title track, Born Dead, Left to Die, and Pull the Plug. I mean, these are some great songs, but yeah, Leprosy, it's a good album. I like the raw intensity that you get on this album, and it's a classic. So there's that. So next up, we got Spiritual Healing. I know that there's a lot of people that would place this album at the bottom, but I don't know. I think this album's kind of underrated. I do like this album. Again, it has that raw intensity to it, and I just really dig it. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff on this album. Living Monstrosity, Altering the Future, and the title track. These are great songs, but yeah. If you're someone that doesn't like this album, you know, please give it another chance, because I think it's a great album and it's underrated. Next up, we got Human. Now, this was, of course, my first Death album, so maybe the reason it's within my top 3 has to do with that reason. Definitely a great album for sure. I mean, there's a lot to like about this album. As far as production goes, this probably has the best production out of any Death album, I think. Some of my favorites would have to be Flattening of Emotions, Together as One, and Lack of Comprehension. These are great songs, and even some of the lesser known songs I think are really good. You got See Through Dreams and Vacant Planets, which I think are really good and underrated. But yeah, Human is a great album. Next up, we got Symbolic. I know there's a lot of people that would place this album closer to the top. I've seen some people say that this is their favorite Death album, and I can see why. It's definitely a great album. Again, one of their more progressive sounding albums, and yeah, I definitely like the progginess of this album too. I mean, some of my favorites would have to be the title track, Zero Tolerance, 1,000 Eyes, Without Judgment, and of course Crystal Mountain. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff on this album. So Symbolic, excellent album. At number 1, this one might be a little unpopular. I haven't really seen many people place this album at the top of their Death rankings, but this is just my opinion. But at the top, I got Individual Thought Patterns. Really, I don't think you can go wrong with any of the songs on this album. Now, there are songs better than others, sure, but I don't know. This album is great. I mean, the production is excellent, and just the songs themselves I think are great. I think this has some of Death's best material. Some of my favorites would have to be Overactive Imagination, Trapped in a Corner, Nothing is Everything, Mentally Blind, The Philosopher, and even the title track. I mean, there's a lot of great songs on this album, but yeah, Individual Thought Patterns, really dig this album, and it's almost a near masterpiece for me. I don't know, it's just a great album. So if you haven't checked out this album yet, please give it a listen. Individual Thought Patterns is my number one. Well, there you have it, guys. That is my ranking for the Death albums. Let me know what you guys think of my ranking. Do you guys agree with my ranking? How would you rank their albums? So feel free to let me know. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day, and take care.